A late night host makes a joke, one joke. A president demands he be fired. The first lady issues a public statement. And America's most powerful family tries to use the United States government to silence a comedian. And every American should be shaking right now. And stay with me. It's really a serious comment. What exactly did Jimmy Kimmel say that made Donald Trump losing his mind? He's calling someone an expectant widow as act of violence or an act of comedy. Why did Melania Trump breaks her famous silence specifically for this movement? What is the Federal Communications Commission's doing inside this story? Why did ABC television pull Jimmy Kimmel off the air, then put him back a week later? What happened at White House correspondent dinner the same night a gunman showed up? Is this really about a joke, or is this about something far more dangerous to American democracy? How many times that Donald Trump tried to use federal power to punish American media? And why? All all the movements to go public did Melania Trump choose this one? What is the actual hell is happening to American free speech right now? I'm going to answer every single one of those questions today. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never see the American media in the same way again. And I cover the American stories that mainstream media sanitizes into nothing. Today's story looks like a celebrity feud. It is not a celebrity feud. Jimmy Kimmel made a one joke. Donald Trump called it a despicable call to violence. Melania Trump issued a public statement demanding Kimmel be fired from ABC. And what happened? The FCC chair began threatening ABC affiliate licenses. ABC pulled Kimmel's show, then reversed course under national pressure. Every American watching this right now, this is what government intimidation of a free press looks like. The core truth of this video, Jimmy Kimmel made a joke about age. Donald Trump tried to turn that United States government into a weapon to punish him for that. Is really American media has a freedom? What exactly did Jimmy Kimmel say? And what did he mean? On Tuesday, April 24, 2026, days before the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Jimmy Kimmel hosted his one alternative roast on Jimmy Kimmel's Live. He joked that Melania Trump had a glow like an expectant widow. That's it. That is the entire statement. Kimmel himself immediately explained on Monday it was obviously a joke about her age. Difference, Donald Trump is 79, Melania Trump is 56. He said, and I quote, it was very light statement. Roast joke about the fact that he is almost 80 and she is younger than I am. And that's the truth. Expect that Trumps didn't find it funny. What happened at White House Correspondents' Dinner while all this was unfolding? This is where the story goes sideways really fast. On Saturday night, the actual correspondent dinner, a gunman ran through a security checkpoint and allegedly opened a fire. Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and other top officials were evacuated by Secret Service. The president told reporters it was a traumatic experience for his wife. Holy shit, that is a real scrutiny incident happened in the same weekend as the late night joke. And that is the following Monday, Melania Trump's first public statement on the entire traumatic incident was not about shooting, it was about Jimmy Kimmel. It is really the joke. Why is the timeline significantly for every American watching? Because the sequencing tells you everything about the political calculation. A gunman disrupts a president event. And the first lady's first public response is demand the fire a comedian. American media should have screamed about the sequencing. Most of them didn't. Melania Trump has closely guarded her privacy and independence. Throughout the second term, CNN reported that directly this was her first forceful public statement. And it was about a joke. This is not a coincidence. This is a strategy. What made Donald Trump call the joke a call to violence? Trump posted a truth social. Jimmy Kimmel should be immediately fired by Disney and ABC, calling a joke a despicable call to violence. White House press secretary Carolyn Levitt called Jimmy Kimmel's comments completely deranged, saying that this type of rhetoric leads crazy people to believe crazy things and inspires violence. Not my first rodeo watching this playbook, but this is a new level. Using a long waist that directly implies a comedian's joke caused a physical threat when there is a zero evidence connection, them is a rhetorical weapon, not a legal argument. What was Jimmy Kimmel's direct response to Donald and Melania Trump's? Kimmel addressed Melania directly on Monday night. He said he agreed that hateful and violent rhetoric should be rejected and suggested that a great place to start would be having a conversation with your husband about it. He also said, and this is the part that broke America open. I also should point out Donald Trump is allowed to say whatever he wants. As are you and as I am, as are all of us, because under the five amendment we have as Americans a right to speech, free speech. Then he said to Melania, I am sorry that you and the president went through that. Just because no one got killed doesn't mean it wasn't a traumatic and scary. Lord Harry, Lord have mercy. That was a masterclass in saying staying on the right side of the history. And you know what? What psychological pattern is Donald Trump's displaying with this response? A authoritarian injury response, that is the clinical behavioral pattern. An authoritarian injury response, that is a clinical behavioral pattern when a figure with a authoritarian personally structure a public mock, especially about morality, mortality, or physical vulnerability. The response is not humor, the response is disproportionate retaliation. Donald Trump is 79 years old. The joke was about his age and his wife's potentially different expectations about their future. This is a specific vulnerability being touched. And damn, that retaliation tells you exactly where the wound is. Why did Melania Trump break her silence now and now for any other controversy? This is the question American media is too scared to ask directly. Melania Trump has been silently throughout policy decisions affected millions of Americans' families. She said nothing publicly about family separation at the border. She said nothing about the January 6th Capitol attack. She said nothing about the shooting, the correspondence dinner, not publicly, but one late night joke about her relationship dynamics, a formal statements demanding a New York network fire its host. The pattern of what activates Melania Trump's public voice tells you exactly what she personally experiences as a threat. What does cognitive authority threat means and how does it applies here? Cognitive authority threat occurs when a person in a high status position price perceives their self concept being publicly undermined, especially in front of a mass audience. Donald Trump's Truth Social post, Melania's statement, Carolyn Levitt briefing room attack. These are not spontaneous. They are coordinated responses to a perceived authority threat. And every American who has worked in a toxic corporate environment knows this pattern cold. The boss hears a joke, the whole organization goes to war. Is there a clinical evidence of chilling effect on American media in the moment? Chilling effect, that is when the fear of government punishment causes journalists, entertainers, or citizens to self-censor even when they have a legal right to speak. And the evidence here is not subtle. At least two major ABC affiliate owners said publicly they would not air Kimmel show. Before any formal FCC actions even began, ABC preempted the show indefinitely. Free speech organizations immediately condemned the network. The chilling effect happened, the real time, in front of every American watching. What is the FCC's role and why does it matter to every American household? Brendan Carr, the FCC chair appointed to Trump, suggested the FCC could move to revoke ABC affiliate licenses as a mechanism for forcing Disney to punish Kimmel. Let the settle in for every American family that watches TV. A federal regulator appointed by the president publicly suggested revoking broadcast licenses to pressure a private network to fire a host who made a joke about a president's wife. That is not a policy discussion, that is the government threatening American broadcasters for content the president personally dislikes, but built different from anything this country has seen in the modern era. What is the clinical term for using institutional power to punish a speech? Viewpoint discrimination. That is the constitutional and clinical legal term. When a government body targets speech specifically because of the viewpoint is expresses, not because of any actual harm. That is the viewpoint discrimination, and is prohibited under the First Amendment. Every American who has sat in the civics classes has heard this principle. The question is whether American institutions will enforce it. Again, the presidents of the United States, and here it's come to has Donald Trump tried to silence American media before, and what happened? Oh, this is not his first rodeo, not by a long shot. In a September of the same year, Kimmel was temporarily taken off the air after making a controversial remarks about the killing of far-right influencer Charlie Kirk. The FCC chair criticized Kimmel's comments and suggested license revocation. The pattern is established. Trump perceives a media threat. The FCC chair signals government force. Affiliates flinch. The Melania joke is a chapter 3 of the story that's began with chapter 1 2 terms ago. What is the hidden truth about what happened when ABC pulled Kimmel off the show, off the air? ABC pulled the show. Then something remarkably happened. A public groundswell of support for Kimmel gained national attention so fast that ABC reversed course less than a week later. That is an American story that almost nobody covered with a weight it deserved. The audience, not the executives, not the lawyers, not the government, the American audience forced the network's hand. When Americans decided they want Kimmel back, Kimmel's come back. The chickens came home to roast for anyone who thought a presidential demand could override American viewers. You know what? What does Kimmel's final response to Trump reveal about American political culture in 2026? After Trump made his own joke at the White House, that's the record we won't be able to match. Darling, speaking to Melania's about lifespans, Kimmel played the clip on his show and said, wait a minute, did he just made a joke about his own death? My God, he should be fired for that. That is not just comedy, that is an American broadcaster using the president's own standard applied back at the president and demonstrate the absurdity in real time. Fuck about and fuck around, find out, and you know what? Donald Trump found out on live television. Why did Disney's new CEO become part of the story, and what does it mean? Bob Iger stepped down as Disney CEO last month. The new CEO Josh D'Amaro took over, and the very first major free speech crisis of his tenure involves whether Disney will capitulate at a presidential demand to fire a host. Every major American corporation facing this question is watching how D'Amaro handles it. The Kimmel situation is not just about late night television, it is the test case for how Americans media companies navigate government pressure in this era. What is the real American danger hiding inside this story? You know, this is the joke itself doesn't matter. What matters is that an American president using his official platform, his press secretary, and a federal regulatory agency successfully pressured a major American broadcast network to pull a comedian for off the air. Even temporarily, that happened in America in 2026. Every American family watching this right now, ask yourself how many times the government would need to do that before your favorite show starts being written around what the president is willing to tolerate. Has any American president successfully silenced a broadcaster before Jimmy Kimmel? Richard Nixon. That is the most direct American parallel. Nixon maintained an enemies list. He directed the IRS and regulatory agencies against journalists and broadcasters who criticize him. The Washington Post and CBC News both faced government pressure during Watergate. Nixon's actions ultimately contributed to his resignation. Sounds familiar? The mechanics are identical. The era is different. The American tradition of press freedom is the same. What does the Don Imus case teach Americans about media and presidential pressure? And Don Imus was fired from CBS radio in 2007 after making a racist remark about the Rutgers women's basketball team. That firing came from advisor pressure and a public outrage, not from the presidential demand. The Kimmel's case is structurally the opposite. This is no mass public outrage from Americans about the joke. The pressure is coming from the top of the United States government. The difference is everything. Sounds familiar. And you know what? What does Tucker Carlson firing from Fox News tells us about this moment? Tucker Carlson, one of the most watched Americans in the cable news history, was fired by Fox News April 2023 with a public explanation. The full story involved internal communications subsumed in the Dominion voting system lawsuit. The lesson: major American broadcasters will remove their most powerful voices when institutional survival demands it. The question for ABC and Disney is whether the institutional survival calculation runs the same direction. Which Jimmy Kimmel sound familiar? What does the history of American late right political comedy tells us about this fight? Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert. American late night television has always been the place where political power gets punctured, not destroyed. Punctured, a joke, a pause, a raised eyebrow. These are the mechanisms American democracy developed to hold the powerful accountable without violence. Every single time a president has tried to shut that mechanism down, every single time the mechanism has survived and the president has not. Not my first rodeo watching history make this bet. And here is real truth about the Jimmy Kimmel and Melania Trump story. Donald Trump did not demand Jimmy Kimmel be fired because of a joke. He demanded it because Jimmy Kimmel is one of the last American voices that 40 million Americans hear every night. And the voice is not afraid of him. And Melania Trump did not issue a public statement because of comedian hurt her feelings. She issued it because the political machine required a face, and she provided one for the first time in months. For this, every American watching this knows what it means when someone only speaks up a command. Jimmy Kimmel stayed on the air. He came back stronger because Americans choose to keep him there. Not the network, not the lawyers, not the government, the Americans. And that in a country where a president is demanding comedians fired might be the most American thing that happened all years. And here is my question to every American watching right now. Have you ever been told to be quiet by someone with more power than you about something you knew about too? Tell me what you did. Comments below. I read every single one. I'm waiting for your opinion in comment box. Thank you.